Of course, we're running a little bit long in the morning, but I want to see if we can spend some time with questions and answers. So if the other speakers in the morning could come up and join us at the table here, we'll start to entertain questions. Mary, do you want to walk around with the microphone there? I was just going to make one or two quick announcements. So we'll break maybe 5 after 12 and try and sneak in as many questions as we can. I want to remind you to pick up your children first and then go get lunch. We have a busy afternoon with the breakout sessions, so those will start shortly after 1, and we'll get that set up for you. And I wanted to stress that we do have TrialNet screening here today. If parents or children want to be screened, they could have their blood drawn. If you don't want to do it here, we could do it by telephone. We can send you to a lab near your house. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. So why don't we go ahead and take some questions here in the front.
Wait 6 months before she goes on the pump. Fortunately, she's in the honeymoon phase and doing quite well, and when we saw her diabetic nurse, we were told she's taking so little Novolog it wouldn't be worth your while to go on the pump. But after hearing Dr. Buckingham saying that we could preserve the beta cells if she were to be on a pump and that she give tighter control, should we then go back and say we want tighter control? Yes, she's 2 months out, not 6 months out. Can we request it, or should we request a pump?
Very tough and political question you have asked. I think that relates to philosophy and how someone's doing. My concept on the islet preservation is that if the islets are exposed to high glucose values, it will shorten their lifespan, and they will be more susceptible to immune attack, and they're more susceptible to a process where they call apoptosis, where they die. And if you're maintaining good glucose levels, and you can't get any better glucose control than what you've got already with what you're doing, and you don't want the hassle of wearing the pump and putting things in and infusion sets and everything, I don't see anything wrong with keeping her controlled the way it is. What is good? Well, that's the interesting question. When you're looking for those values, when I showed you those tracings there, they were fairly flat. And I think what we miss sometimes is what happens an hour or two after someone eats. And if your values a couple of hours after someone eats are less than 140, you're doing great. If the 1 hour is less than 180, you're generally doing pretty darn good. And I'm not sure you're going to do much better with a pump and sensor. And in our study, I got to tell you, it was a multi-center, NIH-funded study where we're putting everyone from the beginning on a pump and sensor, and so we can see those little rises and things walking out. But it's a lot of work, and for the kids that were in it, there's a lot of, they're wearing stuff the whole time. They're wearing not only a pump, but also wearing a sensor from the beginning of their diabetes. So this is a study we were doing. It's a research study that answered the question if I would want to put it practically to anyone on a day-to-day basis. I would discuss that again with your physician and look at your child's control. But when we have an answer in November, then I can talk more definitively about what I recommend.
So, hi, thank you so much. This has been incredibly intellectually and emotionally fulfilling. So this is an amazing panel, and I want to thank Kathleen, wherever she is, for organizing it. I'm a nurse in the San Francisco Unified School District. I work in a school of 2,200 students. We have 6 type 1 diabetics and 1 type 2. And of those students, 3 are here today because I chauffeured them here. And I think about scaffolding, and those of us who are in this room as parents of teenagers, that is such a critical concept about scaffolding, because none of these 3, their parents will tell me that they're not listening to them very much anymore. So thank you for having this event for the teenagers. So I just have 2 requests. One is, can Corey and Maggie make an opportunity to speak with those 15 and 17-year-olds, because those kids are in group O. So if you have a moment to check in with them at the end of the day after they speak to Robin Cox, I think that would be a great thing. You're scared of teenagers. Forget it. Okay, don't even bother. And also, Yeah, because I think you did, of course, learn from them, but they would learn so much from your 2 presentations if you minimized the adult-like content. The second question is this is so impressive, what your slides, are any of us able to obtain a copy of these? Thank you.
Yeah, so I know we're going to find a way to post the talks up on our website, so we'll get more information about that. And about the actual slides, I think it's up to the presenters as to whether or not they want to share those and whether we can just post those up on our website as well. We've done that in the past.
Hi, this question is for Dr. Buckingham. Our son was diagnosed at 2 years old. He's now 3.5. He was in a very long honeymoon, and he's been on a pump for a little under a year now. I just had a question about how you were talking about glucose levels and eating. And you were saying for between 80 and 100, you can eat right away. And then over 100, 10 minutes, over 150, 20 minutes. Are you talking about that you correct, or do you give the correction and the food bolus?
I'm generally thinking of the whole bolus.
Okay.
A 2.5, 3-year-old. 3-year-old is probably a little bit better, but one of the problems with really young kids is you put the food in front of them, and you give the bolus, and they don't want to eat.
Right.
And there have been studies by a number of people looking at giving the bolus randomly in toddlers, and you sacrifice a little bit of glucose control, but you end up not fighting food battles. So it really depends on how consistent your child's eating, and
Right.
once you've given that insulin, you're stuck to make sure that they get the carbs in. So if you have a really good consistent eater, I think that's really good thing. If you don't, you may want to, bolus at the time or after. Sometimes even half before and half after. But when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about the full dose, which is
Okay.
the food and the fresh.
So if he was 200, we bolus 30 minutes in advance, you wouldn't see
220 minutes in advance.
Okay.
And yes, insulin kinetics are not the same from one day to the next and one person to the next. And I mean, when we have a sensor on them, we'll also look at the rate change. So if you were 200 coming down, you would probably not need to wait as long. If you were 200 and going up, you would probably need to wait a little bit longer. But when you have a sensor, you can actually look and see where your blood, you can wait for your blood sugar going down before you start eating. So this is doing it somewhat blinded, right? I have had some young kids get low, waiting for that to happen. So I do individualize things, but in general, you can get much better control.
Okay, thank you.
I know we're going to get squeezed out by lunch here. Let's see if we can squeeze in a few more quick, short questions, and hopefully the speakers can all hang around for lunch, and you can meet them casually.
This question's for Corey. I'm curious how, as a parent, I understand my grief and the emotions I go through. My type 1, I understand what she goes through. I'm curious how it translates to siblings, and if they go through any of the same cycles of worry, depression, and just, there's not always a place for the siblings of the type 1.
It's a great question and great point. I think that in general, we know far too little about the impact of siblings. What has seemed to work is finding ways to involve them in the process. And then, so that's one thing. The other part is to be consistent as a parent across what you do. And so, for example, when kids come home from school, the kid with diabetes or the kid without diabetes gets asked, "How was your day?" And diabetes is the 8th question you get asked. And so I think that that's one strategy to provide a consistent, parenting approach across. But I also encourage families to bring their siblings into different tasks. And you may have a 5-year-old sibling who wants to always carry the feeder to the 10-year-old who needs to check. So they always have some kind of job, and maybe it changes. But I think you try and involve them in the process in that way, giving them tasks, giving them things to do, and one of the things that I think we can do a better job at is providing some support groups for siblings and focusing on that area.
So how about one last question for the morning, and then I encourage you to track us down during lunch and join in for the afternoon sessions, which I know will give more opportunity for interaction. One last question?
I have a question for Dr. Buckingham, over here. We've been informed that Lantus is not necessarily the best during pregnancy, and I'm just wondering what your take is on that, Lantus versus NPH or pump therapy during pregnancy.
The glucose goal in pregnancy is 60 to 90. It's amazingly tight, and I would actually recommend a pump and a sensor. If I was pregnant, thank goodness I'm never going to be pregnant. I think you need to really be following what's happening tightly after meals and through the day, and you're aiming for very tight glucose values and good overnight. So I would use a pump and a sensor.
Thanks very much. Remember to pick up your kids and enjoy lunch.